Hello, everybody. Welcome to another session of Come Cloud with Us. Welcome to 2025. I'm your host, Abdul Kazi, and I have my co-host, Chris Gale. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Good as always. Happy hump day. It's Wednesday, right? I feel it's Wednesday.
It is. It is. Reminds me of the, meme, like, hey, it's Wednesday. I'm like, yeah, it's like mid-January already. Come on, where
I,
time's already flying.
wait, it's mid January. Oh,
We already 15th. I thought the year just started. I want to say Happy New Year to everyone.
yes, we agree. We agree. But yeah, how are
We're
you? How are you guys?
So we have a very special guest today. Ilhan is here. Um, he's really famous. Like I don't think he needs an introduction, but he's MVP cloud. I'm sure you folks have been following his cloud marathon. Um, you know,
Community, we can say.
memes
So it's
and
Cloud
LinkedIn.
Marathoner. Yeah, everybody asks me, is it you? No, it's not a person, actually. The Cloud Marathoners are the community. It's not just me. I just came with that idea, kind of founded the blog, and put the idea that it's all about helping other people to learn about cloud and then sharing in your journey of learning the cloud. And that's what's Cloud Marathoners. And I believe why people kind of like and try to follow that, because I try to alleviate the people who join the Cloud Marathon community through trying to show something, learn something, share the insightful stuff with the rest of the community, so they can feel empowered and continue their journey. Because it first is going to help everybody to learn. Second, is going to give them extra boost to continue that doing. And you wouldn't believe, but just two people that I know who joined the Cloud Marathoner over the years, they became MVPs, Microsoft MVP. So that's another thing to help people, right? To achieve their dreams, do whatever is unachievable, but just putting your first step out of the door.
No, very impressive, very impressive. And honestly, I must say, you're really a good community leader, like with the MVP and sharing the content, and people really look up to you, you know. So yeah, you're really highly liked in the community as well as the MVP. Um, so talk to us about your journey into the Microsoft world, the Azure world, the MVP world. How long you've been doing this? Where did you get your start? Kind of talk about the journey.
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually became accidental MVP, meaning that I didn't target for it in the beginning, and I didn't thought that I be nominated as an MVP in the beginning. So it was total surprise to me. But in terms of starting the Azure journey, it started for me luckily very early, because I'm a Microsoft certified trainer, and as a Microsoft certified trainer for a long time, you learn about what's new coming up into the training and as well as technology stack in the Microsoft. So for me, it started around like 2016, maybe 2015, introduction to that classic, Azure, where you had this Silverlight UI, so to speak, which was crashing from time to time. So uh, yeah, if you know, you know what was happening there. It was very
Yeah.
basic, but it was something. It was something there, and you would not believe the first time when I really hooked up with cloud technologies, especially in this case with Azure, was because of necessity.
Hmm.
It happened where I was working. It was a healthcare company that we were doing software, and at that time it was web apps, and we're developing a mobile app. We There was a very strong request to make a demo, and then as I was a tech lead of the team at that time, I said, okay, we need this, two servers, caching server, whatever you need to build your infrastructure. And our infrastructure say, okay, wait for 4 to 6 weeks. We are going to deliver that to you. We are out of servers. We can't accommodate your request. I say, what are you talking about? In 3 weeks, we have a demo. And
Typical
then,
on-prem
really, that was the
environment.
case. And then I say, okay, I spoke with project manager. I had my own subscription at that time.
Hmm.
I say, okay, let's do it there. I know that's possible. We can set it up at least in a week. It's possible. So then we did that. The demo was good. I would not say it was like flying colors or so, but it was good to convince the customer. And that was the first time when the people that I was working together saw the power of cloud and how it can elevate those burdens of infrastructure, of data centers, and having servers and stuff like that.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, that's great. And then I know you kind of touched on the Microsoft certified trainer,
Trainer,
but
yes.
I believe you're, it's been like 16, 15, 16 years now.
Yes, that one. Yes, that one actually also I would say happened. I would say happened uh, from some opportunity that I became an MCT in 2007. And if you go back like I don't know 20 years or so, you know that there was such a certification called MCITP,
Mm-hmm.
MCITP, or it's basically Microsoft Certified Technology Experts. There
Yeah.
was such a thing for .NET, for web development. There was a Windows development at that time. So basically, it started with certification. The company where I was working, they say, okay, we wanna become Microsoft, partners who want to volunteer their time. We are paying for certification exams, go study material, pass. And at that time, I said, okay, let's start that journey. I didn't have any Microsoft certification at that time, and I passed the first one, and then second one, get my this kind of associate degree. If you kind of equate that for that time of certifications, and then once I get that MCITP, it was very familiar in naming, close to the MCT. And when I was talking with the people, I was saying, okay, I'm Microsoft certified. I have this certification trainings, and one of the people who was trainer at that time, or he was manager of the trainers, I forgot. uh, he said, okay, we need actually somebody to teach people. I said, okay, what it is, it's like, are you MCT? I explained him that I'm not a MCT, I'm MCITP. But say, no, looks like you have an interest in technology. And because I already had some background of teaching to the students some Microsoft Office and stuff like that, not as an MCT, but more of a person who loves the technology and help to people. And then you say, okay, let's get you MCT certified. So that's how I became MCT certified in 2007. My journey of trying to get that actually started in 2006. There was of course some failures on the road, but we didn't give up. And by 2007 I became MCT, and that's continuous, right? It's from that time. For the last couple years, I'm a Microsoft certified regional lead for the US area. This year we had the rebranding from MCT regional lead to MCT community lead. And if there is anyone from MCTs who is listening us and who wants to become a stronger MCT or become part of the MCT community and help the other MCTs, please reach back, and I will be happy to help you in that journey. Because I don't want to brag about it, but last year I nominated 4 MCTs to become MCT regional, MCT community leads, and they've all successfully became MCT community leads this year. That was really, I didn't expect that, but testament for all those great candidates.
That's
No, that's
awesome.
awesome. That's great. And again, thanks for helping the community, right? That takes a lot of effort. Because yeah, this is all community work. We have a full-time job, we have families, but yeah,
Yes.
you
Right.
doing this, like yeah, that's kudos to you. That
Yeah.
shows
And
your passion about learning and technology and helping people as well.
yeah. And
Yeah. That.
part about just paying attention to the others too. It's like kudos. Thank you for that. It's yeah. Sometimes I know there's a lot of effort that sometimes just goes unnoticed too. So thank you for
No, thank you.
taking the
Actually,
time
I
to
want to say
explain
thank you to everybody who is in this community. You can be MCT or MVP, or you maybe not yet. That doesn't matter. But if you put effort there, I know that you sacrifice from your time. Some people cut from their game time. Some people cut from their family time. Some people cut from their exercise time. Depends. But it's all small here and there sacrifices, and they are doing this work basically for free to help others. So this is really, selfless in helping the rest of the people to upskill, and I really salute all those people. as well.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for that. With that being said, we'll let you jump into your presentation.
All right, thank you. So before starting, I want to give a little bit. I want to first thank you, the Cloud with Us community, and especially Chris, you and Abdul for extending this invite, and plus having this rescheduling game with me to bring this session. I know that schedules are really hard, especially when
It
we are all
happens.
employed and have families and stuff like that. But we made it, so that itself is a success. So thank you for doing that. Secondly, I want to say thank you everyone who is going to watch it. And I was really surprised. Probably you saw that also on Twitter. There is a strong follower community that I'm working with, the Cloud Marathoner, and some of them say, "Hey, it's very late by my time." I believe some of them are in UK and Britain. Say, "Don't worry, it's going to be recorded, so you can watch it later on." And really building this community of people that I never met in person, but over the years they like the sessions where I'm presenting, and plus they are part of the community where we are sharing the information. That's all I would say. Give this booster, this energy to us to be, to continue this journey of sharing and helping other people to succeed. Okay, that's it. Let's come back to our session. Today, I will try to basically again show the power of infrastructure as a code and how to manage it more professionally. Because in the beginning, when we start learning from the basics, but then there are moments where we come in our real world project where we need to have more better understanding of organizing our infrastructure as a code, and as well as the what's the compliance part of it, right? How we can bake compliance related stuff into our infrastructure as a code. To do that, in today's session, I'm not going to talk about agenda. We'll see it. But before diving into agenda, I want to just give a little short introduction about myself. If you never attend any of my sessions, I'm not going to list the things that I'm doing there, but I'm all about community, helping people, and I attended many different events. Some of them were in person, those ones which happened before pandemic and even after pandemic here in the area where I am, in this DMV area here in Washington DC area, Virginia, Maryland. If there is any in-person event, I try my best to get connected with the community. Uh, Thank you, Microsoft, for recognizing my contributions and making me MVP for a couple years in a row. And I'm also glad to help the MCT community as a uh, MCT community lead. It used to be called regional lead, but there was change in terminology. On my day job, I'm helping the company called T-Rex Solutions LLC to provide solution to our customers. Most of them are mission critical customers, and I'll talk a little bit about that because some of you, if you are in the market here in US, North US, or even across the US area, uh, the TX Solutions, the company where I work, we have open positions and we are working with different um, federal, civilian, and intelligence uh, intelligent agencies here. And while doing that, our first mission here is to empower the customer by bringing this modernization and cloud solutions to them. So there's different cloud solution provider vendors that we partner together, and we deliver different solutions to our customers based there on it. So if you are in the market and you're looking to change something or grow your career, check out some open positions at the TX Solutions website and let me know if you have any questions. I'll be glad to help you in that journey. All right, that's it. Let's move here. Let's look at the agenda, what we are going to cover today. There's a number of things that I'm planning to cover. And first, we are going to start with Express into Azure Bicep. And if you never heard about that, about this infrastructure as a code way to do in Microsoft Azure, you will get familiar with that. Then, of course, I will move a bit further to code reusability in Bicep, how you can create modules, pieces of code, pieces of infrastructure as a code definitions that you can reuse across your solution. Because when we talk about cloud solution, it's not just different resources that you deploy and manage separately, but it's all about a holistic solution that you want to have them together where you can reuse certain pieces and patterns as well. Then we look into, what's the private bicep modules, why you want to have those private bicep modules within your solution, and what advantage you can get out of it. Namely, we'll touch about the container registry, how you can get started with that. Then, of course, in addition to private bicep modules, there are um, public bicep modules provided by Microsoft, and some of them have went through some evolution. And I will. I'm not going to make an announcement, but there is a different or better way to use those publicly available Microsoft Bicep modules. So I'm going to touch about that, show where it is, and so you are aware about best practices and where to look for help. And finally, we'll have a couple of demos along the road so that you don't get bored with just no slides. I'm going to switch to the Visual Studio Code to show some stuff. I hope that sounds good for everyone and you guys are excited. So we can continue our. Let's go ahead. All right. So what's Azure Bicep? Some of you who never heard about this is basically a domain specific language, meaning that it's a specifically created infrastructure as a code language to help you define and manage your infrastructure as a code in Microsoft Azure environment. So to answer the questions, when we talk about DSL, meaning that with this language, you cannot go and create an application. For example, you cannot create a gaming application or a software. This application looks and feels like any other infrastructure as a code language that you might be familiar with. And we will we will dive into that just in a bit. Next, it Azure Bicep helps again to simplify the authoring and managing Azure resources. When you compare that with the previous way, how it was done in Microsoft Azure using the JSON declaration in Azure ARM, it's much simpler, and I will show you the difference there. Then, of course, the transparent abstraction over ARM, meaning that if you are already familiar with existing ARM templates, which are based on JSON declaration, then you wouldn't have much trouble to translate your previous skills into Azure Bicep language because it's going to be much simpler to define resources if you are already familiar with JSON ARM representation. And it's a new way of infrastructure as a code in Microsoft Azure. Actually, it's the Azure Bicep itself is still going through some iterations, meaning that it didn't reach the stable version 1.0 yet because there are certain milestones that Microsoft Azure Bicep team is trying to reach before releasing the stable version 1.0. But most of the functionality is there stable, and way back like 2 years ago, Microsoft actually already announced that if you are using Microsoft Azure Bicep for your day-to-day infrastructure provisioning, it is totally supported in production. Meaning that if you run into any issues, you can open a regular Microsoft ticket and you can get that support from the Microsoft channels. All right, that's it. Before jumping forward, as I mentioned, it's a new way of implementing infrastructure and defining infrastructure in Microsoft Azure environment, but there are a lot of similarities and uh, a number of things that you want to differentiate between Azure Bicep and ARM JSON templates. And to get it better, let's look at at this diagram that can make it even simpler. So let me make sure that I have my, yes, zooming. Okay, so here, as you can see, what we have is we have a bicep file, which is basically going to be a file that we create from scratch, or you can get an existing Azure Bicep file that can define some of the resource. For example, it can define a Azure web app with application service plan, or it can define a storage account, or it can also define a AKS you know resource that you want to deploy into your subscription. Uh, so this it doesn't matter you have a Bicep file or you have any other template that you wanna provision in Azure environment. All of them go through some HTTP calls, right? So they talk to the API on Azure, which we can call Azure Resource Manager. And if you have been in Azure and Microsoft world for long enough, you know that there are like two different type of resource managers. There's like classic one, which get retired, and there's this Azure Resource Manager, which is basically this modern one, ARM layer. And all these calls, HTTPS calls, go through that layer that you see here, right? And then they all validated, they authenticated, and then resources are created based on the resource provider definitions, based on the API number, based on that resource versioning that you're trying to create. And while creating any Azure resource, and when you define the provider and resource type, you do define their API version which you want to use. So we'll come back to that. But this is basically high level how everything is working under the hood. And before jumping further, I think it would make sense just to open a Visual Studio Code here, look at how Azure Bicep file looks and feels like, and how a regular ARM template feels before we'll jump into this, some of the benefits of Azure Bicep language. So I'm going to switch to Visual Studio Code here. I hope it's visible for everyone. If it is small, I can make it a little bit bigger here. But I'm going to go through certain files that we are going to reuse during the demo. So if something is not clear, please let me know. I'll be happy to help. So here where we are at the moment is this is the repo that I'm going to use. And I'm going to provide the link to this repo. It's in GitHub. It's Learn Bicep. That's the name of the GitHub repo. Maybe you already forked it from previous sessions where I'm using the same GitHub repo. But here, under the modules, you would see that we have a number of different templates. They are all in Azure. So they are all Bicep templates. In order, if you never used Azure Bicep before, I would say there's a repo called Learn Azure Bicep. And that's the one that I'm trying to manage with the community, together with the community. Let me bring that into the view. So this is my GitHub repo, and in this GitHub repo, if you land on this page, let me make it bigger so it's easy to see. And the same name is actually Yusubov. That's kind of my GitHub name there. So if you navigate there, you should be able to come down here and see Learn Bicep GitHub. All the demos and every code sample is stored here. So you just need to open, clone it, and then you would have it. So under the Learn Bicep today, I'm going to show you things under the script. We'll run certain scripts in our demos, and under the modules here, we are going to use some files. So this is from where everything is going to come. But for now, I'm going to go back to my Visual Studio. So we are back to the same repo that I just shared with everyone. So I hope that's clear where the code is coming from. Next here, under the modules, once you are there, let me just, make sure everything. So this is the same repo that I just show you. So under the modules, if you navigate to minimum storage Bicep, what it is basically some declaration of Azure Bicep. And if you don't know this and you want to start from you want to create a new resource, by just typing res, you'll get a lot of snippets. And if you want to get this auto completion and snippets, you need to install something in your Visual Studio Code. If you never did Bicep code development, here under the extensions, I highly recommend to go and type Bicep. and then you would get this Bicep extension. So make sure that it's installed on your Visual Studio Code. It will make your life much easier in developing infrastructure as a code using the Azure Bicep. So I assume that you would be able to go and install that if it's missing from your tools. So once you have it, let's go back here. Whenever you want to provision something and you want to look how to use the templates, it's very easy to start. Here, if let's imagine it's a new file that you just created, if you type res, which stands abbreviated for the resource, it will show you you'll get right away some template. For example, if I type res here, as you see, you can create uh, AKS cluster. There's a way you can do API gateway. They're all about these different Azure resources. And this is the default templates, meaning that there's still some tweaking needs to happen in configuration if you are trying to tune it up onto your requirements, but this is a good start. So let's say I'll take here uh, storage account. So once I get it and then press on tab, it's going to take that boilerplate code and it's there. So now if you want, you can go and change whatever you want for your requirements. But before going too much into that, this actually mimicked what I had here. Let me go back again and choose the one that I actually intended. So here, if you click on Resource App Insights, it's going to take the default implementation of App Insights, default definition of the resource App Insights, and put it here. And then, of course, using the tab, you can go and give it a name. You can say my demo insights. You can say App Insights here. Oops, my demo App Insights. And then in location, you can put the actual location. It can be any location that's close to you. It can be Azure. It can be Azure East region or anything that is familiar. In my case, for this code, as you see, I have Azure region here, inheriting that from the resource group. So you can use the same and use the Azure region, or if you want to actually put it, you can put here East US, East US 2, depending which region is the closest to you in the world, that the place where you're located. And then of course you can put other configurations. But here, the main idea here, what I want to try to say is that it's very easy to start. You just type res and you can pick up your template. Secondly, once you pick, if you look at this to understand it even better, you would see that this is it's broken to different components. And here you get this is the resource type, right? The resource provider that belongs to, and then this is the API version, right? That it belongs to. So any resource that you deal in cloud, all of them come with some type of version that you are using to. And to show you example here, for example, if I remove this and go to the existing code. Here, for example, we are using a version 20, May 2022. But if you go and look, you would see that there are different API versions of the same storage account resource, meaning that um, there might be some feature that's dependent on specific API version. You want to make sure you are aware about that so that you pick up the version that's best aligned with the, with a feature of the resource you are trying to utilize in your solution. So let's put it back there. Okay, so this is, as I mentioned, this is the Azure small Azure Bicep uh, declaration of the resource. Here on the top, we are declaring description. What is this, parameter is doing here? You define parameter keys. You can inherit the location where you want to deploy your Azure resources from resource group function, which was done here. And this is one of the preferred patterns. So you don't, so it eliminates the issue where you have a resource group in a different region and all the resources are in a totally different region. It's actually possible. You can have your different Azure resources. You can have your West US, East US, or Northeast um, Azure region resources in a resource group which is provisioned in East US. So that's still allowed, but it is not, I would say, uh, it is not preferred, because when you build a solution, your resource group acts like a container of a scalable unit for your application, where you want to scale all the resources same. And to have the minimum latency between your resource and solutions, you want to make sure each resource is as close as possible to each other, meaning that if you provision them as much as possible in the same region, then you are not going to have much of these latency issues. All right, so that said, let's continue here. This is, as you say, there's a parameter that is defined but not used. That's why I call it not helpful. And what it is, you see there's a yellow squiggly line here. This is something that Bicep Linter actually help you to warn you about certain things that are there are unused parameters in your code, and you can set them up. You configure them up in the Bicep config, which is located here in the bottom. In my case, so if you go to this file, you would find the ways how you can tune it up, those type of linting rules to make your Bicep code more cleaner and much better. Okay, that said, let's come back to our main resource, which is the storage account. Here again, we define a name, we define a region, we define all the properties that this resource needs, and then you can also define the tags. And this is the bare minimum that how you can start building your resource in Azure. And another thing that I want to show is before having this a well-defined infrastructure as a code using Azure Bicep. When you wanted to deploy anything 5 years in Azure environment, you would have to use ARM templates. And for ARM templates, you can easily build ARM template from this Bicep file. This Bicep file defines a storage account, as you can see. Let's you can now right click and say build ARM template, or you can run a command. Uh, so let's do it easy way. This is the easy way to just build this ARM template, which is a JSON representation. And as you see in metadata, it will tell that you want to use Bicep, the version of Bicep, to build this template, right? This ARM representation, and then you would still have the parameters, which going to define all the parameters that we have in the code, including the one that's declared but not used. And then after that, you will have resource declaration where your resources are going to be deployed, where your resources are going to be declared. So as you see, when we use the ARM JSON representation, it's pretty long. There are like 40 lines of code. But if we close this JSON representation and look at our ARM, would see that it's half of it or less. It's just 20. It's ending at 20. So it's much easier to maintain and create Bicep code when you compare with ARM template. That's the kind of beauty of it. And there's a lot of built-in tools that help you in this process. All right, so that's it. Let's switch back now. This was a small demo introduction into what's the Bicep code, what's the ARM template, but we want to move forward a bit faster here. So what are the benefits of Azure Bicep language? You see a number of things here, but I would say the biggest benefit is it has first class integration with Azure, meaning that whenever, and it has this day zero support, meaning that whenever there's a new API is introduced in Azure, and you want to use that API, it's already exposed, then you can get that API version and those features in your Azure Bicep resource declaration right away. You don't have to wait for that. It comes with a lot of validation tools as well. You can use pre-flight validation, which is basically the way to tell your terminal, hey, go and check this Azure Bicep subscription. If I'm going to deploy following code, what are the changes that are going to be applied or going to be happening in my environment? So you can get that easily done with pre-flight validations, and we'll look at some of its demo. You don't have to manage any state when you are using Azure Bicep when you compare with some other infrastructure as a code tools like Terraform, and it comes with production support, so you don't have to worry about that. But I would say one of the uh, best features that I like about Azure Bicep to work on provisioning the infrastructure as a code is the awesome tooling that comes with Visual Studio Code and with Bicep extension. So that's kind of the biggest thing that you would always be happy that it's there to help you code. All right, that's it. I talked about how to get started to learn Azure Bicep. So this is one of those repos, awesome Azure Bicep. Please record that, go and check it. It's powered by community, and it's all about how you can get started to learn Azure Bicep, including how to set up your Azure, your environment, your Visual Studio Code, and how to download and set up Bicep depending on which type of environment you have on your laptop or computer or PC. Okay, this is another way. If you are not a person who want to learn from GitHub repo, but you prefer to watch some videos, there are some courses on LinkedIn, starting from Azure Bicep. There's like this Azure Bicep First Look course, and then you have Azure Bicep Part 1, Part 2. So check them out. They will be also in the link. There are also good ways to start learning through video and doing exercises while learning your Azure Bicep. So these are the ways or places where you can get started. Um, so before jumping to the modularization with Azure Bicep, I want to go back here in to Visual Studio Code. Okay, and I would like to go through some modules that we are going to containerize. We are going to package them, and we are going to make sure that we can reuse them. But before talking about packaging and reusing, I want to make sure that you are all become very familiar with modularization in Azure Bicep. And to get it started on the same repo, I would recommend go and look at these samples, which were developed over the years, and some of the community members helped actually to shape it up. So here, for example, if you go and look at this example number, let me look at that. So modules, deploy modules with parameters. So I have here this example number 7, where we are using the modularization that comes with Azure Bicep. So what are the modules? Modules are, let me give you some idea. So modules are basically the use of existing Azure Bicep code. So if you already created Azure Bicep code, and that code can create an application service, it can create a storage account or any other Azure resource, you can reuse them by using the modularization of Azure Bicep. So in this case, you basically define the name of the module, then you define the path to that module within your directory, or if you are using GitHub, you need to define the path to your module, which is a regular Bicep code declaration. And then you just define the scope and parameters, and that's how it works. So if you are not familiar, this is the basically the way how you can auto generate certain names. Let's say if you want to automate and standardize a naming convention while you define your resources in a way that it is dependent on certain instance. For example, in this, the one that you see here, it's actually going to take a unique string from the application resource group, okay, and then define it as a piece of the GUI that's going to be attached to the name of web app deployment. So it can be also, you can take the resource group name, for example, and then convert that in a unique string and then attach that one. So it can help. So what's the help there? What's the benefit is that it's going to always create the same if you are going to deploy it into the same resource group, or you are going to use the same app resource group, it's going always to create the same resource with the same name. But if you change the environment or if you change the resource group name, then you can get different resource name. And that's very important because certain resources in Azure, you need to have a unique name. And you want to make sure that the uniqueness of your name is tied up to some factors. It can be your resource group name, it can be a specific application ID name, but having that always helps. Okay, so this is the modules. And if you keep on control button bottom, I'm using the Windows system here, and then click on it. Then within the code you are going to navigate to that app service. In our case, it's a Bicep file that defines certain code here. And let's say you're new to this code, you don't know what it is. There's an easy way to understand it from graphical way by using the Azure Bicep visualizer. So here on the right side, as you see, you have this icon. So if you click on that icon, it will tell you, it will try to visualize all the resources within your Bicep code and show you some relationships, which is pretty cool if that file is especially very long. Let's do that. So I clicked on it, and here what we get is like, you get these two boxes. So it tells us that we have application service plan and we have a site. It's a website or web app that's going to use that app service plan. So that's what it is about. So even if you never use Azure Bicep code, or and you want to just get some idea what's happening here, you can always rely on that feature. It's very handy, and kudos to the people who created that. All right, so we know that this file creates a application service plan and app, and you can go and further investigate this file later on. I'm not going to spend too much time here. Another resource that we want to look is ACR registry, which is Azure Container Registry, and part of the talk about Bicep modules actually going to utilize this ACR, which is the Azure Container Registry. And in this one, we would see that it defines parameters for the name of this resource, deployment region, and the SKU of the resource that we are trying to provision. And all this does is defines the parameters and then uh, defines the Azure Container Registry resource if it's a given name, location, and as well as the SKU of the resource. Okay, and it has this server name as the output parameter. That's another thing that you may have. So if you go again, click on that Azure Bicep visualizer, it will tell us that there's only one resource that's going to be provisioned if you are going to use this ACR um, dash registry dot dash bicep file in your provisioning. So that said, let's close this one as well. So we looked into ACR registry, we looked into app services. Let's look into storage with parameters. So we are going to use these files while building our Azure Container Registry and registering the files there. That's why I want to introduce that to you, so you are very familiar with this. So here in this piece of code, we are defining a storage account, and then we are defining a lock resource. And why we are doing that is, as you know, nobody likes a loss of data, right? So if you provision some data services, it's a very wise idea to make sure that there is lock on delete operation. And even if somebody is ad administrator or can be owner of the resource, they don't have possibility to accidentally go and delete that resource. Of course, in Azure, you have some different ways of soft delete and some other features that you can use, but this is one of the earlier guardrails where you can put a lock resource on a specific resource where you want to make sure that deletion is not going to happen in a way that it's done, um, accidentally. So there will be no accidental delete of that. No, so that let me rephrase, so that there is no accidental deletion of that resource. So that's what it does. And if we go and again look at this demo, you would see that we have a storage account and we have a lock resource that's attached to that storage account. So that's it. We looked into a couple files. We looked into ACR registry app Bicep. We get some good understanding what it does. We get look into app service and resources that are get provisioned as part of the building the web app, and as well as the we looked into this storage param, which shows the provisioning of the storage account with a lock resource to make sure that there's no accidental deletion of this storage account. Okay, that's it. Let me go back now. Before, so here in Azure Bicep Registry modules, right? So what we are going to cover here, Azure Bicep Registry module might be new to you, or you may have some, you know, some very high level of understanding. We'll dive it into a little bit and show how you can use Azure Container Registry to version control or put your Bicep modules there so that you can iterate through them, you can access them through versioning. And it's not just you, it's about team. It's about building the assets for your organization and your company if you have specific logic that needs to be built into those modules. And in addition to that, we'll look into some public Azure Bicep modules, and we'll talk about um, Azure verified modules. Maybe you are familiar with that. It's another big topic, but I will mention that and show you the resources that might be helpful to you in your learning journey. So here it's a small good diagram about how Bicep Container Registry works when you deal with Azure Bicep and you want to version control your modules in Azure Bicep. So first of all, uh, it's basically you need to have your Bicep modules to be provisioned. It can be on your own laptop resource or it can be also in your GitHub repo. So once you have your Bicep module, let's say you have an app service resource and you want to version control that, then you can publish that into container registry, which needs to be there and you need to have an access there. Then once that uh, once that app service module is there, you can always call that and consume that in your other Bicep templates that needs that provisioning of the resource. And then once your Bicep template is able to consume or use that uh, Azure Bicep registry module, then you can basically use that to deploy that resources into the Azure environment where you are. So that's kind of very basic, high level of understanding how it works and what is the benefit of version controlling that using the container registry. That's it. Now, without any overdue, I want to show the demo of that. And before showing the demo, I want to make sure that we focus there on modularization of infrastructure as a code. Then I will show you the uh, Azure Bicep public modules. We already looked into Bicep Visualizer, looked into some code snippets, and some of these code snippets do generate parameters. That's another part of it. But before going further into this modular path, let's go and look at our repo. Let's go back to the demo. Okay, so here we already introduced some of the files. I'm going to just remove them for now. Okay, so what we are going to do here is, let me actually close all these files. Okay, so whenever you are going to start with the demo, I scripted certain portions of this demo so it doesn't take too long for you to get started. But here, if you navigate to the scripts, under the scripts, you should be able to see deploy. Oops. Here, under the scripts, you should be able to see this deploy-private-acr file. So what it is, basically a set of scripts here that's going to help you to build your ACR using these scripts and then uh, deploy available Bicep modules by version controlling them. And then we'll look how to use those version controlled private Bicep modules in your Bicep code solution when you are trying to provision them for specific solution. So here, I'm not going to go one by one, but I tried to put the comment, so it's easy. So first part here, if you already use the Azure CLI for connecting, you would run this command to get connected. Next thing, once you run this command, you want to make sure that your account, if you have more than one subscription, you set it up the subscription correct. And if you want to know what exact subscription you are using, you can run this command, and let's see what it will bring here. Okay, in my case, it was not able to find. Let me try it again. Okay, so I'm running this MVP subscription 07, and if you look in our this is the basically the it's I know it's white and black. It's it's going to be transition here, but this is the basically environment where I'm going to where we have these resource groups. Let me click on resource groups. So all these resource groups are under the subscription my MVP subscription 07, and we have here 14 resource groups that are ready and available. So if you go and run all the scripts and everything that's available there, what you should be able to get under the cloud demo resource group, you should be able to go and get these resources. There would be which is going to provision for you one container registry, and then using the container registry to the publishing your Bicep modules. I was part of this exercise, published the Bicep modules, which are defining web app and as well as application service plan. And then there's another code that again creates another demo ACR, and then there's another one that creates a storage account, and then you publish that using your code. So if you you can always go and delete that and run from the scratch, but for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to run from the beginning. So here a group list. So here if we go and clean the screen, let's clear it. All right, so first, again, our purpose here is to create a resource group, then create a ACR, Azure Container Registry. Then we want to push these Azure Bicep modules into the Azure Container Registry with version control, putting the version of each push that we make. And then we want to retrieve those artifacts, those modules from our Azure Bicep container, put them into our Bicep code where we are referencing them, and then publish the resources using our Bicep code, which is going to reference the Azure Container Registry modules. This way, we have a centralized place where all the developers in your project can use them, they can maintain them, and you can bake some specific compliance related code, like for example, any storage account that you provision, it needs to have a log, can be easily done that way. And once everybody is using those Azure Container Registry Bicep modules, your company and your project can be assured that there would be no instances where that's missed, and it's a next level of compliance and competency that would bring to your team and to your customer. Okay, so long story short, here if I go and right click here and run this AZ group list, it should bring all the resource groups that are currently in my subscription. And as you see, it brings them all, including this cloud demo 01. But next, what we can do, we can create another demo here. And I'm looking at the clock, and there's a lot of if I run the whole demo, it can take another 30 minutes. So that's why I'm not going to run them one by one, but you are more than welcome to run and see what happens. But I'm going to walk you through what's actually going to happen. So once we run this next line item here, of course, it's going to create a resource group with the name cloud-demo01 that you saw in the subscription. Next, what you would see is we are deploying this file, and we are putting the name cloud with us01. So what it's going to do is it's going to go into this module, and this is the same ACR-register bicep file that I showed earlier. It's going to provision that using the name that we supplied in our command. So once we have that cloud with us01 ACR registered, then you can go and actually list that ACR. It should appear once you try to list that in your command line. So in this case, cloud with us01 is actually appearing here, which is the expected, which is the expected behavior here, right? That we want to see. Next, once you have your ACR provisioned, you can go and get the server name out of it, uh, and then you should get this as a response. That's the expected response out of it. After you provisioned your Azure Container Registry, next step is going to be to publish your existing Azure Bicep modules into your registry. And this is the steps where after the step number here at the step number 25, before you have anything, it's going to be empty. If you run this command first time, it should bring empty. There will be no modules. But once you go and run the line number 28 and 32, what will happen here is that on the first one, you are going to deploy your first storage module using the storage dash param bicep file here that we showed earlier. And the next one is going to deploy your app services.bicep file that we looked into declaration of the app services earlier in our demo. And it will publish this app service version 1.0. So I want to mention here that when you define the versioning, when you push your files, this anything that's come after these semicolons, they call it tag. So your tag may be version just v1. It's also a valid way, or it can be saying the latest. So there's different ways how you can tag the resources. And if you deal with images in the past, it can be virtual machine images or Docker images, you know what I'm talking about. So what Azure Bicep ACR is using is the same convention. It's up to you how you want to follow it, but the more standard way you follow, it's going to be easier for you, and it will resolve a lot of issues. So in this case, I'm using this standard way of versioning. So once we have these two modules pushed in our ACR, once you did that, what you want to make sure is that you want to go back to your container registry, and then you want to make sure that they are actually appearing under the repository. So once you navigate there and you click on your repositories, you should be able to pull them for you. In our case, as you see here, we have two modules that have been published into our ACR registry. One of them is app service, another one is storage. If you go and click on each of them, you would see that certain versions with their encrypted SHA will appear. But keep in mind that even though you publish them there, there's no way that you can read it from the Azure portal. So if you want to read them, you need to download and read them locally. So they are not readable from the portal. Same thing applies to the storage. We only published one of version. So if you have same thing applies here. If you click on this, you would see that it's not going to show you the actual code. What you are going to get is just this SHA representation of that, and as well as some metadata regarding annotation and media type and stuff like that. Okay, that's it. Let me go back here to the resource group. So where we are at this moment is at the line. Once you're at the line number 35, we already published our files, and now we want to actually utilize them while we are building our a um, here in this step number 36. What we are doing, we are going to publish our Bicep module, which is defined under the samples 15 into the cloud-demo01 resource group. So what it does is basically, if we navigate there under the samples, if you navigate to this 15, you would see that what it does is basically it's going to reference this Azure Container Registry that we created, and we are sure that you want to make sure that we push this app service resource there. So now it's going to pull that resource from there and then provision that in the given resource group. So in our case, the cloud dash, in our case, it's going to be provisioned under the cloud-demo01. If you want to provision them in a different resource group, that's also very possible, but you want to make sure that you created that resource group. And to show it as a live demo, I think we have enough time for it. Let me do that. So here, for example, under Azure Group Create, you can provision here demo, for example, 02 in the East US. Let's do that one. Run terminal. So we are going to, with this command here, we are provisioning a new resource group with the name cloud-demo2. And then once this provisioned here, we are, if you want, you can, now we are going to use the same resource group name to provision a new set of resources in our, using our sample file. Okay, I'm going to put 002. And then we are going to make sure that, so let's look at this file to see what's going to be provisioned. If you look at this number 15, you would see that it's going to provision this app services here. And then there's another way of how you can declare it and provision, and it's going to provision a storage service here. But as you see, I'm going to remove this part. Okay. The difference between provisioning resources here, the app service and storage account, is that in one of them we are using alias, which is the second one, but in the first one we are not using alias, we are using the full path. And if you want to know where is this alias defined and how you can shorten the path, you may want to go and navigate to Bicep config here, which I mentioned earlier for the Bicep linting. And then you want to look here under the module aliases. You should be able to find something. So what I mean by that is here under module aliases, you should be able to see that I have declared cloud registry, which has this full name of my Azure Container Registry, and as well as module path. That's part of it. So once you define this module alias, which is called cloud registry, then you can easily use that in declaration of your modules. So in our case, for this specific example, once we use this 15-deploy, it's going to deploy app services and as well as storage account. And if you want to see that again on visualizer, just to get understanding, you would see that it's actually not getting visualized as the previous ones because it's a module, and inside the module, whatever is coming is going to be provisioned. So, but here's the thing: if you want to see what's inside this resource, you can always navigate, press on Control, and click on this file, and then it's going to give you this JSON representation of the resource that's there. You can, even though it's in JSON, you can still use this icon to visualize that, which is also a neat feature. So for this ARM viewer, you would see that for this resource, which is the app, is provisioning a web app and as well as the application service plan, which is service farm. Okay, so and same thing you can do with the storage account by clicking and looking into that. So what we expect from this is we expect application service plan provision with a web app, and we are expecting a storage account to be provisioned as part of the provisioning. So if I go back here to provisioning, if you remember part of my demo, I talked about pre-flight validation. So if you want to run pre-flight validation, you want to put a -c conditional at the end of the file here. and then run this provisioning. So once we run this provisioning, we should see that our new resource group, Cloud Demo 02, should get a new resources provision under this resource group. So if we right click and run this in our terminal, it will check the Azure subscription to see what are the changes, and then it will come back to us saying that here are the new changes that are going to be deployed. Okay, so it says Cloud Demo 02 resource group is not found, which is an interesting. I thought it's actually succeeded. Cloud Demo 02. Okay, maybe I made a typo there. But before going further, what we can do if you get into this error, we should not panic. What we can do, we can go and list all our resource groups and see if we actually have that resource group provision or not. So that would be good check here. Let's see what we have. So we have actually Cloud Demo 2. So we don't have 02, but we have Demo 2. So we are going to use the correct naming here. Let's use that one. Let me go back here to the code. So here, Cloud Demo 2, that's what should be the name. And then let's run this script. So what it's going to do now, it's again going to validate our template Bicep code. It's going to check to make sure that there's a resource group with a name where we are trying to deploy. And then it will tell us what are the changes, what going to be, applied. And if we approve those changes, then it's going to then our code is going to go and apply that. But if we deny it, our deployment is not going to succeed. So here, if I go up, I would see that it's going to try to create this storage account with the name test with some GUID there. It's going to then after it created the storage account, it will create my app with some GUID name here, and then we'll try to create a web app with the name Cloud Wizards-demo-01. That's going to be the name. But if we already have such a web app, it may not create that one. So let me see if our web app already have that name here. So when I look Cloud Wizards-demo-01, so we already have that one. So it may not succeed. So if you want to make sure it's actually succeed, then you need to push another code, and that could be, app services version 101. So if you go to app services, you would want to go and change that name. So here in the modules, app services, let's see what we have. It's good. We don't have any thing that's coded there. So app services, we need to go and look at our file itself, 15, module 15. So in module 15, we would see that in our app service name, we give actually this name. So we want to make sure it's not the same name. You can use here some identifier or resource groups. In our case, to keep things simple, I'm just going to put here 05. Okay. And then I'll go back to my code here. And I'm going to make sure that we are not deploying this because there's already app name with that thing and we don't want it collapse. So if I go and run now, we should get again another validation telling us what are the new resources that are going to be deployed. And as you see, it already this conditional validation or pre-flight validation give us some opportunity to see what are the resources that are going to be deployed. And if you see some discrepancy or you know that that's not what it is, you have a chance to go back, roll it back, change the things, and then revalidate it again. So in our case, again, it's going to create a storage account with a test name with GUID. That same storage account is going to create a my app, and then it's going to create Cloud with us demo app 05. That all looks good now. I will say just yes, and now actual provisioning is going to happen of these three resources into the new resource group we just created. So while this is in progress, what we can do is I will navigate to the Azure portal. I know it's white, and let's make it a little bit bigger here. So what we are going to do, we are going to go to the resource group, and then I'm going to refresh everything. You should see here Cloud Demo 2. Refresh. Hmm. Yeah, sometimes it requires a complete refresh to get the recent change from Azure to be displayed in our portal. Let's do that one. Still no luck. Home. Let's type cloud. Okay, while it's going on, let's see what our, so it's actually succeeded, and you should be able to see cloud demo 02. As you see on a UI, it's still not appearing, but what we can do, we can go and, you know, query this from the resources on web app list. If you go and query that, if you are still waiting for the UI, you can see that when you list all the web apps, you should be able to see that 05 app to come up. And here we go. Cloud with us, demo 05 is actual provision. So what we can do now, because we know that there is such a resource, can copy the name here and then go back to our portal. Okay, this is the portal. Here, let's go back to resource groups. And now we see Cloud Demo 02. And when we go and refresh, we see that the web app, the application source plan, and the storage account are provisioned. If you want, if you did do a number of provisioning, you will see that these are the provisioning steps, meaning that what has been deployed, and you will see that deployment actually started with this file, and then there was a storage deployment, and there was deployment of the app service. And you can dive into each of them to look at the parameters, inputs, and other things which are helpful, can give you some information. Okay, so that said, this is an to wrap it up, what happened here, basically, we deployed what we were trying to do, and you can use this script to go forward with that. Now, this is the representation once you deploy your Azure Bicep modules into the Azure Container Registry, how it will look like, and what's the schema looks like. This is going to be the full name of the Azure ACR where you deployed. Then if you have a module identifier, it can be defined here. And then of course you'll have the module version that will appear here. Okay, okay, that's it. We already covered Azure Visualizer. This was just another screenshot that Azure Visualizer is must to have tool, and you'll find it very helpful in a projects where you have thousands of resources and you're not just dealing with few. uh, Before jumping into what we covered, I would like also to show you mm, this thing. We didn't get enough time to do that, but for Azure public registry modules, I strongly recommend everybody get familiar with Azure verified modules. And here under the Bicep, it has both Bicep and Terraform. So if you are a Terraform fan, you can look into that. If you are would like to upskill yourself with Bicep, you can look into Bicep, but it gives you some good idea where to start and what are the recommended ways that Microsoft has these verified Bicep modules that you may incorporate into your day-to-day development and project. Okay, this is what it is. And All right, so that's it. What we covered today, we looked into express intro into Azure Bicep. Then we looked into some reusability in Bicep in forms of modules that you can use and you can parameterize them and utilize across different Bicep modules. Then we look into how you can create the private Bicep module using the Azure Container Registry. We looked at how to provision that, how to publish the modules there. After that, we had very quick introduction to public Bicep modules as Azure verified modules. I hope to cover that next time where we'll have enough where we can just focus on it. And then we had a couple of demos here and there just to show the concepts to make sure that you know where to look. And most importantly, you want to get that you want to get that GitHub repo so that you can practice that if you want to actually get this hands-on feeling, how to do those things. I'm pretty sure you learn more when you do hands-on exercises, and that was the reason why I created that. Any questions here that I may address? I would be glad. Sorry, I went over. I think I went over for some time, so I hope it wasn't that boring.
No, 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 no. I don't see any questions yet. I know a few folks are still tuned in, so you're maybe one opportunity to get some questions here. If anybody's listening, anybody, any feedback on what we've shown here, but this is awesome. I really, just looking at what you've gone through, I really like the simplicity of what Bicep kind of brings to the game. So folks that have used ARM in the past, I know it's sometimes one of these. So
Yes, that one thing, Chris. Another thing I want to mention is that if you go to look at the Azure documentation, and especially for the resource provisioning, previously we had only ARM template examples where Microsoft recommending look at this, it should help. Now you don't just get ARM templates, but for the last couple of months, you also get the Bicep sample of that. So,
yeah,
which is much leaner and cleaner to get understanding. So that's another benefit. If you get stuck with Azure resources, you don't know which one to deploy. It would be much easier to figure out if you get up to speed with Azure Bicep and know these fundamentals, where to start and where to look.
I don't see any other questions or comments just yet. So, Abdul, any questions you might have?
No, this was a great session. No questions for me, but yeah, this was really great session. Um, but yeah, thank you so much for coming in, and this was great.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you, everyone. Yes, and before kind of finalizing our session and thanking everyone for watching it now or maybe later on your YouTube channel, I want to say that there are some learning opportunities here. So you can always go and look at this again for video learning. You can check the Azure Bicep First Look on LinkedIn and as well as the part one. This awesome Azure Bicep GitHub repo. This is here again. You would not believe, Chris, when it started, probably like 2 years ago. I just started that from out of curiosity. Let me put the things that I'm, discovering about Azure Bicep to get, people started. But over the years, it just grows so much, and I get like probably around 20 25 people who are contributed so far, and half of them are MVPs.
Yeah,
So that's awesome, man. So if one day or Abdul, you get some excitement about Bicep that you want to share, this is the repo for you guys. I always review whoever submitted any PR, and I'm happy to accept new contributors. So there's I would say exclusive invite for both of you and anyone who is listening to our session.
awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. That's great.
Yes, and finally, of course, big thanks to you guys for organizing this. Spending your time. I know it's coming to the around 8:30 p.m. ish here on the East Coast, but you are still here with me, and everybody who is watching us, at this moment or later tomorrow or within this week. Again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for organizers again, Abdul and Chris. Thank you for
Amen.
inviting me. And who knows, if you get like this, a lot of requests from your users about these Azure verified modules and how to use them in the Bicep, just let me know. I would be happy to present that for your audience.
I would love to have you back.
Absolutely. We'll be happy to have you back. Yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
great topic too. So
Yeah.
folks who haven't looked at it, yeah, I'd highly recommend go take a
And
peek.
I want to I didn't talk too much about that because of timing, but I want to give people a little bit small history there that before Azure verified modules, actually Microsoft and MVPs, they were contributing into a project called Azure Bicep public modules. But then over the last couple of months, there was change in Microsoft approach, how they wanna maintain them, and then they came with these Azure verified modules, which is not just Bicep, but there's also some Terraform modules there, and the benefit of that is that there are some good best practices that people learn over the years, especially when they are dealing with real world scenarios. So that's what it intended for. It's intended to give you some good practices before you bang your head against bad practice and burn yourself. So that's why these Azure verified modules are so valuable. Just making
Yeah,
sure that people and audience also understands why I'm so excited about that.
I would just say just to add one bit to that too. At least my experience so far with it. I think they use WAF aligned, so it's like the well architected framework,
Yes.
right? So a lot of deep experience from a lot of different folks in that regard. You hit it on the nose. Like a lot of a lot of real world deployments. That's what that WAF is built off of. So it's nice to see that effort. All right,
Yes.
friends. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in. Thank you so much. This is a fantastic session. I know I got to go back through it maybe a little bit slower in some parts and kind of follow along with the resources you created, but this is an awesome community effort. So thank you, Elkhan, for this. It's been fantastic.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone. Thank you. Have a great evening and great day. Talk to you later.
Take care.